Good evening. It is now 5:30 p.m. and I now call to order the Grand Island Public Schools Board of Education meeting. This is the March 13th, 2023 meeting. Notice of this meeting has been advertised in the Grand Island Independent, which is the district's designated method of giving notice of these meetings. We want those in attendance to know that copies of the Open Meetings Act are available at the entrance to the boardroom. If anyone in attendance is interested in addressing our board, you are welcome to do so. We simply request that you complete the appropriate form and turn it into us so that you may be recognized during the request to address the board part of our meeting. If you have not already completed the form, please see the staff person outside the entrance to this room. Public comment is welcome. We do ask that no signs be brought into the boardroom. Ms. Dibbert, would you please call the roll?
Mr. McFarland.
Present.
Mr. Helinski.
Here.
Mr. Garcia Mendez. Mr. Hawley. Here. Mrs. Wilson. Here. Mrs. Albers. Present. Mr. Sykes. Here. Mrs. Jurgens. She has given prior notice that she's going to be absent. Ms. Maudlin. Here.
Okay. Mission statement, Mr. Garcia Mendez.
Every student, every day, a success. In educating students, we teach hearts as well as minds. Within the school district of Grand Island, every student has access to high-quality, culturally responsive, and engaging learning environments. Every student will develop literacy skills across disciplines. Every student is socially and emotionally equipped to thrive in school and in life. Every student will graduate as a college, career, and community-ready citizen.
Thank you, Eric. The first item on the agenda tonight is the consent agenda. The consent agenda to be approved is as follows. Items number 4.1, minutes from the previous month's meeting. Number 4.2, acceptance of agendas from standing committees. 4.3, claims as submitted. 4.4, bid proposals as submitted. 4.5, staff adjustments as submitted. 4.6, treasurer's report as submitted. 4.7, policy. 4.7.1.3212, superintendent evaluation, first read. 4.7.2.8240, admission of exchange and foreign exchange students, first read. 4.7.3.2110, powers and responsibilities of the school board, first read. 4.74.2111, board operating principles, first read. 4.7.5.2230, board committees, first read. Okay. Now, does anyone have a potential conflict of interest on agenda item number 4.3, claims as submitted? If so, please state the check number you will be abstaining from voting on. Yeah.
I will be abstaining from voting on check number 87509 on agenda item 4.3. I approve all other items on the consent agenda.
Thank you, Ms. Malden. Okay, at this time, I would entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda as submitted.
I'd like to recommend the approval of the consent agenda as submitted.
Seconded by Mr. Josh Hawley. Do we have a discussion? Seeing none, we will put the question to a vote. Okay, sorry. What's that? Dave gave the motion and Josh seconded. Oh, no, you're good. All right. Thank you. Motion passes. Okay, special recognition. 5.1, recognition of the Grand Island Senior High Boys and Girls Bowling Team. Miss Cindy Wells. Bring in the champions.
Right here.
Got it.
Good evening, everyone. Well, have the luckiest job, the best job in the world, that now I'm here to present our back-to-back boys state championship bowling team. So what I'm going to do is have each bowler introduce themselves, and then we will get a little group photo afterwards. Okay.
I'm Cody Cadwalder, and I'm a junior.
I'm Brock Kramer, and I'm a freshman.
I'm Austin Sinsel, and I'm a junior.
I'm Jet Hennings, and I'm a senior.
I'm Caden Cusella, and I'm a senior.
I'm Ramsey Ratherton. I'm a freshman.
I'm Braden Lee, and I'm a senior.
I am Paul Lee, and I'm a senior citizen.
Okay, so Cody.
Yep, that works.
All right, look at me. 1, 2, 3.
All right, ready? 1, 2, 3. All right, perfect.
Good deal. And then, yep, Mr. Fisher, Mr. McFarland. All right, look at me. 1, 2, 3. Let BB grab a couple, and then we'll let parents grab some.
All right, 1, 2, 3. Perfect.
All right, families, if you haven't had a chance to, if you would like to snap a picture, come on up and grab one.
And we also have a individual state champion. Caden is the Class A high school state single champion.
All right, 1, 2, 3. Got it.
And have you back, Cindy. Oh yeah. 1, 2, 3. Perfect.
Look at these bowlers. Come on, go ahead and circle around a little bit, right here, honey. Okay, all right, and our girls, this was the second year of the program, and this year they were district champions and also state runner-up. So Grand Island Senior High, we brought home the hardware, that's for sure. And we look to do it again, right, girls? Okay, go ahead and introduce yourself.
My name is Hannah Stromer. I'm a junior.
My name's Kaylee Cusella. I'm a freshman.
My name's Emily Dreyer. I'm a sophomore.
My name's Brianna Miller, and I'm a junior. My name's Wendy Cole, and I'm a freshman.
My name's Eliana, and I'm a junior.
My name is Brad Ernest, and I am the coach.
All right, look here. 1, 2, 3. BB.
All right, ready? 1, 2, 3. Perfect.
We'll have Mr. McFarland, Mr. Fisher come in. All right, one more round. Look at me. 1, 2, 3. BB.
All right, 1, 2, 3. Perfect.
And then families, if you'd like to snap a photo, if you haven't had a chance yet, come on up.
I'll crop you out later, Brad.
Wonderful. Well, there goes our crowd. Okay, item number 5.3, the NSPRA 2022 to 2023 top 35 class, under 35 class, excuse me, Mitchell Rouse.
Good evening. Thank you for taking time on your agenda to celebrate our wonderful staff and students. Tonight, I would like to help recognize Mitchell Roush, who was named the Nebraska School Public Relations Association, as you said, 2022-23 35 under 35 class, which honors emerging leaders in the school communications field. This year they had a record number of applications, so obviously it is competitive. They've been doing this since 2015-16 and have named 210 school communicators to this group over the years. First and foremost, Mitch is a champion for our staff and our students. That is his number one priority. Almost as important, he has done an amazing job of creating a truly strategic operation within that department, being more proactive than reactive and very planned. So would you please help me in recognizing Mitchell Roush?
Speech.
Yeah, you guys want, we don't usually do a certificate for adults, but we usually do pictures.
All right, fair enough.
Sure, I will.
If you want, you can get in front of here so you can take a picture. Okay. All right, am I going first? Yeah? Okay. All right. Perfect. All right. 1, 2, 3. And could I have you just a little bit more? There we go. Perfect. 1, 2, 3. Okay. You can go. Awesome. Go. Yes.
Okay, ready for item 6.1, campus highlights, Shoemaker Elementary, Calm Down Kit Corner, and Restorative Circles School Implementation. I have for speaking, we have Samantha Amick, Eric Streck, Amira Wolf. Go ahead.
Anybody better with computers want to?
All right, this is not a presentation on technology, luckily. So my name's Lee Wolf. I'm the principal at Shoemaker Elementary School. I've been there an awful long time, and just thank you for your time. And it's an honor to be able to just say a few things that we're doing at Shoemaker. It's a highlight for me this year. Within our school improvement plan, we introduced and trained staff on providing restorative circles for our students. Part of our school improvement plan is positive supports avenue of connectedness and building relationships and really being intentional about having a space and time to do that for our students on a consistent basis. And we introduced restorative circles as a way to do that. So we provided training for the staff. Ms. Amick and then Mr. Streck were part of that. And Mrs. Amick did a lot of the training. She provided templates. We practiced with staff. We've pretty much done a restorative circle with staff every staff meeting and professional development day throughout the year. And it's really a nice way to get to know our teachers in different ways and build those connections and talking points. And it's a great model, obviously, for them to then implement with their students in the classroom. The teachers, each grade level, created their own schedule where they use a flex time every single week on a specific day where they do a restorative circle. And at the beginning of the year, we had about a 2-month lesson plan, if you will, every week that they followed in a structure, and now they've been able to do that themselves and know the topics they feel are best maybe for their grade level or for their students. They hit on areas such as respect, responsibility, getting along with others, friendship, including others, and lots of other things. So it's really been a great piece of our school improvement plan, and then Mrs. Amick will talk about that. And Mr. Streck and my daughter Amira was going to come. She's in 4th grade in Mr. Streck's class, but she's very busy with dance and gymnastics, and we pay good money for those things, and just didn't work for her to come tonight. So but she really enjoys Mr. Streck's restorative circles. They're very creative. I think we have a picture he'll probably touch on as well. And then we'll also talk a little bit about the Calm Down Kits, which is a social emotional piece that Mrs. Amick wrote a grant for that's been a nice tool for students when they do need those moments during the day to just regulate, get their emotions under control, so then they can get back into the game, so to speak, for doing their best with learning and gaining instructional pieces that they need to get. So without further ado, here you go. This is, let's see, Mr. Streck.
All right. There we go. So restorative circles, it really strengthens problem-solving skills. It holds each other accountable. Just like your classroom, we have the expectations and just the norms that we follow. So that goes into our restorative circle, and it's more of a higher expectation because their classmates are sharing more vulnerable stuff, so they follow those expectations so everyone feels respected and trusted. They acknowledge each other's feelings, accept individual needs, resolve conflict, and then just really building a classroom community. And I'd really say it's helped build a classroom family because a lot of my students share a lot of things that you really wouldn't expect them to share, but they feel loved, respected, and they feel trust among our circle. And then I asked my students to write down things they loved about our restorative circle, and here's a couple of them. They said, I get to know more about my friends and classmates. I like the circle because it helps me tell my class what I have done or how I'm feeling, and I get to know them. I like the restorative circle because it is a good way to communicate my feelings with people and to know more about them and their feelings. And then I like circle because if you have something in your mind to say, you can say it in the circle and feel loved, respected, and heard.
The other thing that we did this year at SHU is implement calm down kits in every classroom. So that's about 36 classrooms, so specialists, homeroom teachers, SE teachers, EL teachers, all got a kit. And it's this one little picture with all, it looks like toys, but they are items that a student can use if they're feeling academic frustration or if they're emotionally dysregulated. A lot of the times when students are starting to feel that way, they need to leave the room to take a break. And so with this being in their classroom, we're reducing the amount of time that they're missing instruction, but we're also creating opportunities for them to learn to regulate their emotions and learn coping skills. So there's lots of fun things in there that they can use to help calm them down. The PTO at Shoemaker was awesome, and they helped fund these for our building. And then this picture here is one of the calm down corners in a third grade classroom. She really took it above and beyond and gave them a comfy space to sit. All the items are right there. There's some charts on how they can help learn to identify their emotions, and there are some cards also in the kit with coping skills like breathing exercises that they can use if they so wish. So those are just some of the things we've done this year at SHU.
Do you guys have questions?
Ms. Albers?
Mr. Strick, how old were the kids that were filling out those little Post-it notes?
4th grade.
That's just makes me very hopeful that kids are going to be nice to each other and to be able to talk about their feelings. Thank you.
And we're excited because it's kindergarten through 5th grade. It looks a little different compared to 5th grade to kindergarten, but the structure's similar. They have a passing token, so to speak. Sometimes, I think in kindergarten they use little stuffed animals a lot of times, and each student that has the talking token or whatever, they're the ones that can speak and share at that moment in time. So it takes some setup, some practice, and setting those expectations and boundaries. And there's been a few times we've had to have a few students leave who weren't doing a good job because we expect that of them, but they learn pretty quickly how to do that the right way. So yeah, it's a kindergarten through 5th grade deal, and we've done it with staff pretty much throughout the year in all our staff meetings and use the same structures too. It's really nice. So other questions?
Ms. Moulton?
I just wanted to take the time to commend you guys for making kids feel special and that they can talk about their feelings. I know both of my kids go to Shoemaker, and they love you guys, and they love coming to school every day, and they are learning how to handle their feelings and talk about their feelings, and I think it's great, and I think the calm down corners are so great and special for each kid.
Awesome. Thank you for that.
Mr. Garcia Mendez?
Thank you. Could you speak a little bit more of like how does this impact the teachers? Like what's their feedback on like all of this? And I think it's amazing work that you're doing, so thank you for that.
Yeah, I would say as a whole, the teachers just come away feeling inspired, getting to know their children. And I know that when we've done our staff ones, we come away just, wow, I didn't know that about that teacher. And then you can build a connection. And there's just a sense of fulfillment after that and like trust building. Teachers have just loved doing that. A lot of them had said that's their favorite part of the week in a lot of cases, getting to do that with their kids. And so it's been really exciting. I don't know if Mr. Strack or if Mrs. Amick, if you have any other things you want to add to that question, but I think it's been really empowering for our students and staff because teachers get to share their feelings. That's important for us as professionals, right? I mean, this work's hard and we pour our heart and soul into it. So it's been good that kids can see that vulnerability from us too.
And just going off of that, like from the start of the year, a lot of kids just like keep to themselves if they don't have your trust right away. And when we started this, I could just gradually see them opening up even more and more every time we had the circle. And then they always come to me like, oh, when's circle time? When's circle time? And now they know, okay, it's almost Wednesday. It's time for our restorative circle. So they're pumped about it, and I'm pumped about it too.
It's also been a really helpful classroom management tool because like right now I'm helping a third grade teacher who is struggling with some behaviors in her class and helping the kids build empathy and realize how their behaviors are impacting their teacher. I feel like it's really strengthened their relationships with their teacher.
And after teaching and having the structure provided, when teachers feel the need and see something within their classroom that they want to address from a social emotional standpoint, routine, something that's impacting instruction, feelings, they can call have a restorative circle whenever they deem appropriate. But they have the tools and kind of the understanding and the structure to be able to get to that pretty quick, hit it, hopefully make an impact, and then things will improve, or skills will be improved, developed, so to speak. So that's been a good tool as well. Come on, any more?
Ms. Albers?
So there's, a whole school of thought, and showing your vulnerability also shows helps develop your leadership skills, to be a vulnerable leader. So have you seen a change, bless you, have you seen a change in even leadership skills or development of leadership skills in the kids and maybe even in the staff since you've started implementing this?
Yeah, I'd say I just see more of a push of like if someone's falling behind or they're dealing with something, there's always a classmate that helps them through it. So, yeah.
They definitely take what they learn about each other, and like I see, at recess, and if they're having an issue at recess, and they really try to problem solve it on their own before they need to get adult involved, which sometimes that's really great because they can work out some of those smaller issues themselves. So.
And for me, from like the staffing standpoint, I'm able to just develop some unique connections or understandings of especially newer teachers that I haven't had a relationship as long with, and it gives me possibly an avenue or just an understanding so that I can best support them and help them do their job and feel good about the work they're doing. So yeah, lots of benefits. Good question.
All right, well, thank you very much. We sure appreciate you coming and presenting tonight.
Yep. Thank you.
Okay. Item number 7, request to address the board. Dr. Dexter? All right. We'll go ahead and skip to item number 8, information items. 8.1, GIPS Foundation Go Big Give and the 20 Years of Staff Giving campaign. We have Miss Maggie McDermott.
Hello. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak with you today. I'm Maggie McDermott, the new annual giving coordinator for the foundation. I came tonight to give you an update on the work of the foundation and to introduce our 2023 staff and board giving campaign. At each of your seats, I provided a copy of our impact report. It'll look like that. Throughout the report, you'll find some quick stats about the work the foundation's accomplished over the last year. If you look at that front page, there's some pretty impressive stats. Most notable, you'll see that $1,184,062 that was invested in programs, scholarships, and grants benefiting students last year. That equates to $121.65 per student. And now I'd like to talk about the 2023 staff and board giving campaign a little bit. The campaign will launch on March 20th and will run through April 18th this year. This year we're celebrating 20 years of giving. That added up to a lot of opportunities over the last 19 years for students. Over the last 19 years, the GIPS staff, Foundation Board, and Board of Education have given. Staff at a consistent 90% or above participation rate. Each board always at 100%. This year, our goals are lofty, but we feel they're attainable. We've set our goal at 93% for staff and 100% for both boards. Traditionally, the boards have given to the foundation through United Way's Go Big Give campaign, which will fall on May 4th this year. Last year, the staff and board campaign raised more than $108,000 with over 1,300 staff participating. The campaign, this particular campaign, is the campaign that schools all over Nebraska look to as the leader, and we feel with the goals that we've set, we will continue to be that gold standard in giving. Each year, we also have a challenge gift, and this year, that gift comes from the Benson family. Janet Benson passed away last year. She was a secretary at senior high from 2001 until her retirement in 2013. And if you ask any of her 7 children, they would say Janet bled purple and gold. It's because of Janet's enthusiasm for purple and gold that the Benson family has had someone teaching, working, coaching, or subbing in the district for 56 consecutive years and counting. It's pretty impressive. Janet wholeheartedly believed in education, our teachers, and our students here at GIPS. So the Benson family, in memory of their matriarch Janet, have pledged $5,000 to match all new or increased gifts to our staff campaign. GIPS has also generously pledged support of the campaign in the form of t-shirts. You've probably seen those over the past few years. Any staff or board member who pledges $72 or more will receive a t-shirt, this year with a customized 20 Years of Giving logo. The t-shirts have been, like I said, a huge hit, so we thank you in advance for your support. The challenge gift and t-shirts are just 2 of the many incentives we plan to roll out this year. And with that, I'll leave you with a quote from Westridge Staff Campaign Co-Chair Kelsey King. Kelsey says, "I believe all students are capable of learning and growing. Through the donations to the foundation, some of these changes are easier. I trust that teachers know their students' educational needs best and can therefore recommend the tools and resources needed to benefit all of the learners within the classroom. Many grants for these resources are just one of the few ways the foundation can support these students." Thank you for your time. Can I answer any questions? No?
Anyone?
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Ms. McDermott. Information item number 8.2, the Hostess Health Fair with Mr. Schlegel and the Hostess students. Okay. Moving onward. Go to item 8.3, the Ascend update with Tasha Jones and Brian Court.
Thank you. One of the things we've done here in GAPS, this is the second year we've done what's called the Ascend internship program. It's a partnership we have with Hastings and Kearney, so the 3 Tri-City schools. We get together and we provide a administrator candidate that is kind of needing that experience that we'd want and be able to allow them kind of grow our own type of program, and we do it together. So ours this year is Tasha Jones from Wasmer Elementary School, and so she basically spent the first semester of the school year, she spent 9 weeks in Hastings as a pseudo assistant principal in one of the buildings there. She'll talk to you about it, and then spent the last 9 weeks of the semester here in GIPS with Mr. Wolf at Shoemaker. So the first 9 weeks we had an intern from Kearney doing that as well. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to her. Thanks.
Hello, let me get this plugged in. All right, I am Tasha Jones, and I'm going to share a little bit about my experience last semester. And so this experience was something that I do not take for granted, and is something that usually you don't get, because I went through my administrator classes at UNK, and you take a practicum, but you don't necessarily get all of the hands-on experiences that you should get before you go into that position. So that's what this internship really gave me, was a lot of hands-on experience that you don't necessarily get before jumping into that administration role. So this experience just really helped me to grow alongside amazing educators. So my first experience was at Longfellow Elementary, and these are just a few of the different things that I was able to do while I was at Longfellow. So when you go to a different district than your own, there's a learning curve because it's very different. I've been at GIPS for 8 years, and so going to a different district was very different, but very eye-opening, and it was a great experience for me. It gave me an experience to grow my leadership skills. So while in Hastings, I learned right away about the importance of relationships with both students and staff and their families. I also learned the importance of listening and asking questions. Being in a new environment in a completely different district required me to be flexible and truly take in all of the experiences that were given to me and just all the new information. Because each district is very different. So starting the year in Hastings, I was able to see how Mrs. Erickson, which was the principal that I was working with, how she starts the year with her staff and how she builds the climate and culture in her school. So during this experience, I got to plan for a new student group. So first grade through fifth grade, their new students, I was able to plan a group for all students that came to the district as new students. And so I was able to help them kind of learn about their new school community. So we did like an 8-week, so every week we would have kind of a meeting and we just give them the opportunity to kind of ask questions. Even me being new to the Hastings district and just the Hastings in general, it kind of gave me an opportunity to grow with them. So this was an amazing experience to help me continue to build the climate and the culture with the students as well, and with the building, and to ask questions and for them to better understand the Longfellow rules and expectations. And so it also just gave, like, when you move, when you're in elementary, it's really scary. So it just gave them another person to be able to connect with that wasn't their classroom teacher. So when they seen me in the halls, they were able to make those connections. I also had the opportunity to participate in building level and grade level PLCs. This was just a really great way for me to collaborate with teachers and see how they were taking their leadership to the next level, even within their grade level and within the school. There were different teams that also met regularly that I was able to join. So like different behavioral, like they have character ed and some different things, and so I was able to join those different teams. And then in October I was able to make the shift to Shoemaker, and this year what was awesome is that I got to come back to the home district for the last 9 weeks, and so that made it a lot easier when I shifted from a Thursday and then I started on that Monday. Like, it made it a lot easier to make that shift just because I know the district and I know the policies and procedures, so that just made it a lot easier. It helped that, like, just the transition was just a lot easier. Even though it was a new school and I wasn't necessarily used to Shoemaker because it's different than my home school, it just was easy because Lee Wolf was there and he just made it very easy for me. It helped that the Shoemaker staff was very welcoming. And so here's some things that I did at Shoemaker as well. A lot of them, some of them are the same things, but I was able to lead a new teacher group. So the intern before me started this new teacher group, and then I was able to finish the last 9 weeks. So it just gave these new teachers a way to connect with somebody else that was different than the instructional coach and different than the principal, just another person to help lead instructionally. So that was really awesome. From this experience from the get-go, Lee did such a great job of modeling the importance of relationships and communication. I was also able to participate in the restorative circles that you guys learned about from Lee Wolf, and truly see the impact that it had on students and their ability to build relationships with others. But it also gave them an opportunity to self-reflect. And their growth as well. So now that I'm back in the classroom, I actually now use the restorative circles. So I learned that from Shoemaker, and my kids actually ask for it every week as well. Like every Monday, they're like, "Are we doing it?" I'm like, "Yes, we are." And in the 9 weeks that I've been back in the classroom, like, I've truly seen how my kids have been impacted from those restorative circles. The relationships are amazing. They're very trusting for each other. So it's been awesome to be able to take things that I've learned from this experience and even implement them right away. So every month within this internship, we would meet as a cohort, so all 3 of us interns. We would reflect on our experiences, but we'd also get some professional development opportunities as well. During this time, we were also able to celebrate things that were happening, really great things, and also problem solve things that maybe were coming up within our internship that we were maybe kind of reflecting back on, and like maybe how we would change it for the next time. One activity that we did that was very impactful for me was called the identity tree activity. We had to write down all of our different experiences that we've had from our childhood, from maybe when we were a teenager, when we were in college, maybe as being an adult or as a parent. And just, we did this like by ourselves at first. So just showing about how we were impacted by these experiences. And then we had to share those out. And it was really amazing to see like us open up to each other and how those different experiences impacted our way as an educator. And it made me to be able to see my other interns in a different light as well. So that was a very impactful kind of activity. Both leaders that I worked with, they did great things for kids. They were truly amazing, and I learned a lot from them and their leadership styles. And then from this experience, I learned that as a leader, you are not going to know everything, but also just that you need to ask for help, and also that sometimes solutions take a little bit of time, but just making sure that you're asking for help and collaborating with others when you need to, because it's a lonely island sometimes, and making sure that you're working with other people. This experience also gave me the opportunity to learn and grow alongside some amazing educators and leaders. Some of the teachers were super impactful, and they taught me a lot of things. I learned a lot of things that I now am using in my 5th grade classroom. So just having that opportunity to go to a different district and learn and grow just gave me just a different perspective. So it was also great to see being able to have that hands-on experience. Like I just was able to, like I did my practicum last spring, and even just coming into this, like all the experiences I was able to have just was very impactful. During this experience, I was able to kind of get the why in the moment. Sometimes when you have questions, you don't get the answers right away. So it was very nice in this experience that I had amazing administrators that I could ask, okay, what's your rationale? Why did you make that decision? And they were able to explain that. And sometimes it takes a long time to get answers to questions, like especially in the classroom, if you have a question, I can't ask until my plan time, right? And so sometimes those answers aren't immediate, but in this experience, I was able to get them quicker and be able to truly make those connections. This would not have been possible without the board. So I truly thank you. So thank you so much, because this was an amazing experience that I'm continuing to want to continue my leadership from this. I do believe that this was a tremendous opportunity for our district to invest in our leaders, and I want to also thank Dr. Palmer and Mr. Court for being my go-to people and always answering my questions. Do you have any questions?
Mr. Sykes. So if one of your coworkers would be participating next year, what advice would you give them to get the most out of this experience? Because I'm new to learning about this, and I would love. What?
Sorry, you got my question.
Oh,
You got to it first.
good. Turn your light off. Okay. Sorry, this is public. I shouldn't speak that way. So Tasha, I'd love to hear the advice that you would give a coworker that has this opportunity. How would you go, this is how you should prepare to get the most out of this experience?
Well, I would say just taking every experience and just going in with an open mind, because when I first went in, like it was very overwhelming, but just making, like, to get the most out of it, you have to be willing to kind of make yourself vulnerable and be willing to ask for help, and also being willing to be flexible. And whatever they asked me to do, I said, I will do this, like, because I wanted all the different experiences, so that way it could help me grow as a leader. So just going in with an open mind was super important.
Mr. Hawley.
So generally when we start new positions or when we advance in our career, we're never 100% ready for that step,
Yes.
right? From where you were when you started the program to now, how ready do you feel to take that next step in your career? And is there anything about the program that you'd change?
Okay, so I guess even for like because of this experience, I wanted to continue my leadership, so I'm actually going to be taking a academic support coach next year, just because I know that we're never done learning, and I want to take myself to that next level. So that is my next step, and I just think it was important just to keep learning, and so that's where I'm going to go. And then, what was your second question? Sorry.
Is there anything about the program that you would do differently? Maybe something you'd like to expand on more, or I don't know, anything you just would change?
Well, I guess just like it only being a semester, it was really hard to get like the full picture of a full year. So it would be awesome to see like how does an administrator like kind of wrap up the end of the year? Just some different things that like I wasn't able to experience. Like the beginning of the year was awesome because the scheduling and all of the different things to set up your year, but also how do you close it out? So not having all of those, opportunities, but I did get an amazing experience. Just there's things that I'd still have to learn about the job. Thank you.
Miss Malden?
I just wanted to say thank you for sharing what you've learned, and I think it's great that you want to learn more about it. And I have seen you at Shoemaker when I've been there with my kids, and I don't think there has never not been a day that I haven't seen a smile on your face. So I just love how excited you are about this and wanting to continue to learn more.
Thank you.
Mr. Garcia Mendez?
Just want to respect. So you teach at Shoemaker then?
Not anymore. So I teach
Okay.
at Wasmer.
Wasmer now?
Yes.
All right, awesome. First kind of question is like, so what kind of like difference do you see like implementing the restorative circles like in Shoemaker compared to like Wasmer? Like, do you think it could be pretty adaptable like in other schools?
Oh, yes. So what was helpful for me is my students looped with me. So I taught fourth grade last year, and so I'm teaching fifth grade this year. So I have pretty much all of the same students. So I have that relationship with them. But I think it's important for all kids to be able to have an opportunity and a space to share about themselves. And I know it can be adapted in different ways for different classrooms.
Yeah.
And my students, like, literally the last 9 weeks have really taken it off, and they love it. Like, there's been some weeks I'm like, I don't know if we're gonna fit it in, and they're like, yeah, we'll make time to fit it in.
Yeah.
So it's been very impactful to them.
No, that's awesome. That's awesome. And just like a final comment, it's just like the one big quality I'd say in leadership is like asking questions, but also like that willingness to learn. And I see it, and I see that passion in you, and I say just like carry it through in the district or in other districts, whatever you choose, but continue on that passion. I think you're doing amazing. Thank you for that.
Miss Wilson?
Yes, she is amazing. I saw her so much over at Shoemaker, and I get so excited the last 2 years that they've been doing this. You get attached, though. That's the only downside. It's like you get really attached, and then you're like, no, you can't leave. We love you here. And I mean, when I subbed, sometimes I'd have to leave 5 minutes early to run down to another school to get a kid before, because there's, schools get out at different times, and she'd cover my class for the last 5 minutes, or she'd be out doing the crosswalk. I mean, she did it all. So, I love the program. I think it's awesome. And I feel so lucky that, my kids attend Shoemaker so that they can get to know lots of other great leaders like yourself.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Ms. Jones.
Thank you.
All right. Next up on the agenda is item 8.4, the middle school visioning update. Dr. Palmer.
Well, good evening, everyone. I feel like I'm just a standing agenda item for the last 3 months, right? Just keep up the good work. All right, so I'm back again, and with our middle school principals as well, to just give you a continued update on our middle school design process. Since the last time that we met, we've been able to take the feedback from the teachers that they gave us. We had a middle school design team meeting, brought that back to the principals. We kind of unpacked that based on their recommendations. They developed, answered some of your questions around, like, what does the schedule look like? What's the implementation plan? How is this all going to play out? What's the phasing plan look like? And so we really unpack that and are going to share that information with you tonight. The principals did have an opportunity on March 3rd to share some of the things that we had worked through. So before we even came to the board meeting, they also shared some example schedules, talked about, hey, what does the enrollment look like in our class sections based on these new schedules? What does this mean for teachers? What's the implementation plan? So they'll talk a little bit more about how they did that in their schools and kind of what that looks like in their, based on those recommendations. So the phasing implementation plan, when we look at phase 1, these are things that you've seen before, but we're just really solid now on the changes for 60-minute core classes in ELA, math, science, and social studies. So that's what you're going to see in the schedules here in just a few minutes. We also have unpacked, like, what does that mean in the task? So just to give you a glimpse of the task list and how detailed it is. So what does it look like when we're moving to 60-minute core classes? So we've kind of got this checklist out, the people that are responsible and some of the dates, all the way down through just what's the communication to staff, what's the professional learning, what are those logistics for the curriculum. So we've really unpacked all of that information, and the principals are making that available to teachers as needed. Some teachers are really interested in the details, and some teachers are they're like, that's too much. I just want to know what's happening to me tomorrow. And so I think that they're going to be able to differentiate for staff based on what they want to see and know. We're also moving forward with the development of a district-wide model for advisory time. The principals have identified some leads from their buildings, including some counselors and some teachers and some key people that are going to actually lead this work. And that's the work that will be done between now and through the summer, so that we can launch this with some professional learning for staff right before school starts in August. So there's a plan to fully develop that. It's similar with the development of the district-wide model for teacher teams. We actually have a book study that there will be teachers identified and staff members and principals that are going to lead those book study teams to actually come up with, what does that look like? What does teaming look like in our buildings that are actually going to help us maximize this time to get the desired outcomes that we want? And a lot of this is centered around that, again, that middle school profile that we shared with you at the very beginning. What do we want our middle schoolers to look like when they leave 8th grade? And then we also talked about the staffing for band and orchestra, and so having one band teacher and orchestra teacher at each middle school, and also you'll see in this the additional request for an additional support for 6th grade to help support the needs of the students and getting them what they need for support as they're learning new instruments. And so the principals can talk more about that if you have questions. So that's phase 1, that's 23-24 school year implementation. Really feel like that was doable as we unpacked it and looked at the timelines. What do we need to accomplish by when and with who? So phase 2 work then obviously is going to be a little bit more, it's going to take a little bit more time and a little more resources as we think about what does the district-wide model for intervention and extensions look like? How do we make sure that we're using those evidence research-based practices and taking the time to either pilot or find those resources that are based on what we need for our middle schools. So we actually have already started that work. Our coordinators are already invested in that, and then they'll be involving teachers in the process throughout the 23-24 school year to be prepared for the 24-25 school year. So there will be some work that's done along the way, and we'll be able to keep teachers involved in that process. And then the implementation of the elective offerings that are high interest, highly relevant, enhance, again, those are things that we can build into our curriculum assessment and instruction meetings throughout the year next year, so that staff have that immediate, their hands in the work of building, identifying, creating the curriculum for those high interest, highly relevant college and career readiness courses. And of course, the move to semesters, we're going to continue to stay with trimesters for this next year to keep that continuity in place, along with the continuity of what they're currently offering for their current offerings. So what students have access to this year, they'll have access to next year when it comes to those electives and those choice courses. The move to semesters, I think, is just something we'll have to continue to evaluate next year. Like, is the move to semesters, does that either hinder our opportunities for students, or does it help support the additional opportunities for students? So I think we'll want to really get teacher feedback on that and what that looks like, and map out those schedule changes if we move to semesters. Because the idea of this is to continue to provide our students with a lot of different choices and offerings throughout their middle school experience. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to our principals to talk about their schedules and kind of how they've involved staff in their process. So, Mr. Foley, I think you're up.
Good evening, everyone. So I think as you've seen through the implementation phases, really the only changes for Walnut at this time will be in core class time, moving from 90 minutes in core instruction to 60 minutes of core instruction in language arts and math, and then from 45 to 60 in social studies and science. Relatively, our schedule pretty much remains unchanged. A few minor tweaks to move to adjust for the time frames of the difficulty of scheduling 60, 45s, and 30s. But all in all, it really remains unchanged in that situation. So in terms of feedback from our staff, the concerns from our social studies and science teachers about class sizes when this was first rolled out is pretty immense, and I think for us it was just asking for some additional help in 7th grade for that. So we relatively very few changes. I think the one thing you see in the implementation phasing is that our intervention time was already at 45 minutes, so it'll just remain at that 45-minute piece. There won't be any changes of that. So for us, really, we're kind of set moving into the second phase of that implementation because we already have that implemented. So are there any questions I can answer for you with regards to the Walnut schedule?
Ms. Malden?
Could you give me a little detail on exactly what Explore is and Wildcat time?
Sure. Wildcat time would be that advisory time that you see, the 35 minutes of social emotional piece there. And exploratory would be our elective classes such as art, music, band, those kinds of classes. So we just call them Explore, but I think maybe we're changing the name of that. I don't know for sure if we have made that official. That's old school Rod Foley for the last 23 years naming. So my apologies if I didn't pick that, if I called it the wrong thing on the schedule. All right, I guess after me. I bet who's next on the Westridge? I guess you're up.
Hi, I'm Stephanie Novotny, Assistant Principal at Westridge. Echo a lot of what Mr. Foley said about Walnut. We initially came up with 3 different ideas of schedules to present to our staff, and then we gave them an opportunity to give us feedback on other options that they could come up with. We also surveyed them for what they liked about the schedule options, what they didn't like about them, and then provide us with some feedback as well. We got feedback about win time, and if they want to keep it the same for next year or if they want to adjust it. And they over 80% want to keep it the same for next year. So our win time is a little different. At Walnut, they have the intervention time, and we call that win time. It's about 30 minutes for us. Class size for us, ours will range about 24 to 25 will be the most. So we are taking 1 math and 1 ELA teacher, and they are going to, we've talked with them, and they have agreed to teach like 2 ELA courses, 2 social studies courses. And so rather than the 3 ELA that we currently have. And then another teacher will do 2 math and 2 science courses rather than the 4.
Okay. The bar schedule, again, looks very similar to the other two buildings. Really, the main things for our building that will have some adjustment is we are going to extend that advisory time. Right now, it's really only about 17 minutes, so we will extend that to about 30 minutes, or to 30 minutes, which is what it'll be into that second year of implementation as well. We also surveyed our staff on multiple schedule options, asked for them to provide some different pros and cons so that we could weigh out which schedule maybe was the best fit for us, but also what within each schedule they appreciated, thought could be the most effective for our kids, what things were going to hinder our ability to provide best supports for our kids. Some of the things that definitely stood out is they really wanted us to go back, I think about 10 years ago, we used to have back-to-back explore times, which provided back-to-back plan times for our core teachers, and so we are going to go back to that. Our win time is going to be extended from 25 minutes to 35 minutes for next year, and that will be at the end of our day, and it's kind of all hands on deck. All staff have enrichment and intervention time during that time. And then the opportunity to obviously have our core classes be 60 minutes long. With the move of having Gates as a feeder school now go to West Ridge, it did reduce our grade level class sizes pretty significantly over the past year. And in looking at the next couple of years of what our feeder schools look like, our numbers will be smaller, which also allowed us the opportunity to reassess the way that we split up teams in our building through attrition, through some internal moves where people had some interest in maybe going to a different area as well. We're able to go to true teams at every grade level. In our class sizes, the largest will be 25 in every grade level as well. And the opportunity to have true teams at every grade level allows some even smaller communities to be created within each grade level. In our 8th grade, where we still have one bigger class, I think we have 270 in that class, we will have a half team, similar to what West Ridge talked about, where we'll have a teacher who will teach a math and a science, and then another teacher who will teach a language arts and a social studies on that half team.
Any other questions? Go ahead.
Wait, don't go anywhere.
Mr. Hawley.
Thanks for providing all the schedules. Obviously, not being able to see them side by side, I'm assuming in all the conversations we've had about equity and reducing class times to 60 minutes for your core classes and things like that, you set up your schools a touch differently, which is fine. Do all the class times align across the 3 schools? I think, like, for example, maybe win time was 35 at Bar, but Wildcat time's 30. Am I right on that? So, I mean, are we reasonably close on these timeframes?
Yeah, they're gonna be a little bit of variance just because of what our phasing plan is gonna be. So as we get into phase 2, we're gonna get a little bit tighter on, like, what are those. Right now, the focus is on core, making sure core is 60 minutes. And then the advisory time wanted to get as close to 30 minutes as possible, so that as they develop that advisory time, like, develop what that looks like and sounds like for students and for teachers, that can be consistently implemented across the 3 middle schools. So the explore times, the win times, those are all kind of still like where they have some autonomy within their building, because they're actually continuing to do what they did this year. And so to change that too much would mean there would have to be a lot of, like, again, the redesign of the courses, which is what we're doing in phase 2.
So by phase 2, we would see more of a closer relationship. Okay, thank you.
Correct. Yep, good question.
Any Mr. Hawley, another?
Sorry, I have another question. I just thought of it. We were talking about class sizes, and I know all of you have spoken to class sizes, and we're thinking about that range, 24, 25 kids per class. And I think somebody, I can't remember who, said, it's going to be no more than 25. But, I mean, realistically, that's unrealistic. We have students transfer into the district every day. Is 25 the hard cap before we have to look at another teacher? Or is that, if we hit 26, 27 to get through this year and then evaluate for next year on how those class sizes look?
Yeah, I mean, we've gone up to 30 in class size, so there's a little bit of wiggle room in there.
Gotcha.
Yeah,
Okay, thank you.
you're welcome.
Dr. Palmer, will we be able to find if we do need additional FTEs? Do you think we'll have any trouble filling those, or?
Well, if Mr. Court can wave his magic wand and,
I see a big nod, yes. Okay.
Yeah, it's a challenge right now, to be honest, across, especially in those core areas. It's difficult. Yeah, we'll continue to recruit.
Ms. Albers?
For the win time, like I'm just at the bar schedule, and that's like where if somebody needs help on something. But we had talked, I don't know if it was you and I talking, we just kind of had a brief conversation about kids that need maybe accelerated work, that need more challenge work. Do you anticipate that that would be something, I mean, I don't know if that's being offered now, but do you anticipate that's something that?
Currently, how we do win is that it's about a 4-week rotation. So we, each month it's a focus area, so it's math and then literacy. And so teachers get to select their students. And so they select, maybe they're gonna work with, one teacher is gonna work with high-level students, one with low-level, and then we rotate each month who those students are.
So is it the same from each school, or is that where where we're?
Ditto for us.
Okay. Mr. Foley?
It's a little different for us.
Okay.
We don't have we service that model differently with our media folks.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Helinski.
Any other questions? Mr. Linsky, you're so close, I missed you.
Been waiting so patiently.
I know, right next to you. I can see why you missed me. 2 questions, really. Gates is now a feeder school into Westridge again. What did that do to the class sizes at Westridge? I know Barr is bursting at the seams, but what's the impact on Westridge on that?
Do you want to talk about the impact?
So last year we had about 180 kids, and now we have 226. And so they'll move up to 7th grade next year. So we'll have about that same amount in 6th grade and 7th grade. 8th grade next year we'll have about 182. So our 8th grade class next year, because of not the 2 feeder schools, will be a little bit smaller than the other 2.
So it's going to bounce out a little bit more then, or?
Yep.
Okay.
Each year.
Okay, and then my next question, this might be for Dr. Palmer, is the what-ifs pop up in my head, especially for fine arts. What if we can't find these FTEs? What's going to happen? Are we going to force this, or are we going to wait?
Well, I think we have some potential candidates. So once they're ready to go, I think we can kind of move forward with that. But it's just like with any position that we have open right now. If we don't fill it, we're gonna have to problem solve what that looks like. Currently, our team, they've been amazing, our fine arts team, about problem solving. Currently, just kind of how do we make this work? What do they need in order to support kids? So we would definitely want to involve them in that process. Like, if we don't get that person, what does that look like? And what do we need to do to support them and to support the students?
Have we looked at that plan already, or are we waiting and seeing, or?
We haven't. Do you want to talk to that?
Right now, we have 3 band teachers for the district for next year, and then we have hired another orchestra teacher. So right now, we would have 3 as well. So right now, we have 3 and 3.
We're set, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Of course, pending March 15th.
Right.
Okay. Hope that answered your question. Thank you. So next steps, principals, they do this every year, but they communicate directly with staff that will be teaching new content based on what they currently know about the staffing needs. Obviously, there are things that happen that we can't predict or that show up on our doorsteps that we don't know are going to happen, and then they have to adjust when that occurs. But for the most part, they've made the moves that they know they need to make at this point, but we'll continue to work directly with those staff that are impacted. The communications department is updating that 2-page document that kind of outlined, what's the why, what's the purpose of the middle school design, what's the profile look like, and then what are the phased plan to further outline what the phasing plan looks like, so that we've got some communication that we can be sharing out So with parents, really after this board meeting, the next step is sharing this out with the bigger community, their parents, and then taking it back to their staff to use as a third point. Summer work is, we got to adjust those pacing guides, so teams will be working on that. We've identified the building leaders, counselors, teachers that will develop the advisory curriculum, and so it's just getting them up and running, and the same with the building team leaders and their counselors. So those are our next steps. So any additional follow-up questions?
Ms. Wilson?
Sorry, I did not understand the answer to that. So for the extra band and orchestra teacher, do we have people that we know are coming, or are we saying that the 3 full-time are the ones that we currently have?
Right, we have the 3 full-time, so 1 for each building, we have that. So we'll still have to hire the 1 additional support person for band.
Well, 1 band and 1 orchestra.
Right.
And your question was, what is our plan if they are not able to fill those positions?
Yeah, and that's still something we would have to work with the fine arts team, like what would that really look like if we don't hire them? Obviously, they'll continue to teach, but bar, like right now, we have 1 position at bar that can help support, so it's Walnut and Westridge that we would have to work that out.
But we would continue to move forward even if those positions were not filled. We would just, because like, I feel like those are such specific skilled people that you can't just fill that in with anybody.
And I can take that question back. To be honest, I was not involved in some of the conversations with the fine arts team and in their last discussions. So I would like to go back and get more information. Then we can share that back with you.
Perfect.
Because they may have already talked through what that plan is, and I don't want to speak out of turn. So
perfect. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Anything else?
Anything else? Ms. Malden?
I know we were talking about that everyone did surveys from different schools. Are you guys able to provide that to the board? Just to see like exactly what the teacher's input was on class sizes, etc.
From the individual building?
Yeah, just curious, just to see like exactly like what the teacher said.
I mean, we could probably go back and like look at what some of the themes were, kind of like we shared with you the last time.
Because I know like class size is pretty important for the teachers right now with how big the classes are. So I'm kind of just curious as like what each teacher has said at the schools of what they were concerned about.
Yeah, and I don't know if you guys can speak to that.
Are you talking about as we shared the new schedule with them, or like in the visioning part?
I guess technically kind of all, whichever survey that you've done.
Right, so like as we rolled out like schedules, I just set the schedule to staff and said, hey, here it is, you got some feedback. The one that I showed you, I got just questions about how science and social studies work. One, I got like tons of instant feedback, like my email just blew up and there was like, we ain't doing that one. That's back off that idea for a little bit. So, but yeah, I didn't do a survey per se, other than just, I guess, because I feel like, you know, our staff has enough culture that we can just have that out there and have the question. But we did get a lot of feedback on it, but
I think what
I didn't do a survey, but initially we did, like when we did the visioning work, there were surveys that was sent out to each school that we asked about, you know, what they were looking for. So I guess it just depends on what you're asking for.
That was in the initial survey. That was a big question, but as this has been developed and the phasing has been developed, and we can show that you're not going to have 35 kids in a class, that the numbers are pretty typical to what an average class size would look like. So
okay. Yeah, I just love to see teachers' feedback because I know they're the most important. So hearing what they have to say would be great.
Okay, I think we probably should move this on. Thank you, Dr. Palmer.
Thank you.
Appreciate it very much. Okay, item number 8.5, negotiations between GIEA and the Board of Education. Mr. Court.
Thank you. We are not ready to finalize things. We just, this week, matter of fact, today, got back from our attorney the written work, we've turned it over to GIA so they can look through that with their crew. And so we will bring this just really as information today. Action coming forward. Most of you have heard this multiple times, so I'm going to go through it semi-quickly with this. We started negotiations back originally, the Board of Education group, we met October 17th, GIA on October 25th, and here we are in March. So a lot of good work done, a lot of good things, and we really focused on recruitment and retention with our staff. And I think between both sides, we came to some really, really good pieces that I think will hopefully have an impact on our staff. So really quickly through these, the first one is the family insurance for married couples. That's one that was kind of some of the wording and some of that. That's something we've worked on with certified staff members for them to have full family insurance for that to be covered. Another one was absorbing teachers. And an absorbing teacher is they absorb that class from another teacher. And we really put that into place that before it was if it was 1 hour or less, they didn't get paid, and we didn't think that was right. If class is 45 minutes instead of an hour long, then you don't get paid for it. So we put, if you're taking on that class, absorbing that class, you're going to get paid for that time. Overage for teachers, this is something that's really more of a high school piece, but could roll down into middle schools or elementary. Occasions when students' needs, curricular offerings, and staff availability results in the need for certified staff members to be assigned a teaching load that exceeds the normal 1.0 FTE. And really they're giving up either like early bird, they're doing early bird class, a late bird class, or possibly giving up some of their plan time. And we've had that where we pay that overage. And we really got into breaking it down into more detailed exactly the time, and so that the pay is exact, because if one person's given up, this 30 minutes and this person's given up 60 minutes, just making sure that everything's as equitable as we can make it. So when this occurs, those eligible for compensation will be paid through iVisions through that overage pay. And it's calculated based on the annual contract, 187, 7.5 hours per day, based on that hourly rate. If there's a need for further prorated, the overage pay for a partial hour, the hourly rate will be divided by 60 minutes, and that rate multiplied by the number of minutes. So we've gotten very specific with the help of Dr. Schroeder, just to make sure it's equitable, it's equal for everybody, and it's fair, we think, for everybody. So that was one that we put into place we think is really, really a positive. Pay for unused sick leave. This is a new one for us, and that's if you've had 30 years of service to the board or more, and upon retirement, you can get paid out for sick leave up to 50% of the daily sub rate, up to and not exceeding $2,500. So we kind of put a cap on that. It's a nice thank you for people to not have used all their sick leave days and to give them that back, but also to thank them for their service during their time for us. Parental leave, I'm not going to read through that whole piece. The biggest change we've had with parental leave is we've added daughter-in-law, son-in-law, grandchild in there, as well as number of days, up to 5 days to attend the birth of a child or a faculty member's spouse or dependent daughter. Anything to exceed that would require the physician's statement in terms of that. So just some clarifying changes with that, more just some wording in terms of that. And then the last one is the health insurance deductible and the base salary increase. Through negotiations, the base salary increased $1,500 for the upcoming year, which is the largest we've had that we can remember. So that's a real plus. And with that, some changes in the health insurance on the lower deductible. It went from $1,050 to $1,900. The higher end, that $3,800, still stays the same. So the big change there is with that lower deductible going up, that added us to add some more to the base of the salary. And I think that's all just kind of review for you guys, but we really wanted to share that with you. Once we get it back from the GIA, we will be able to move forward at the next board meeting and finalize it. So any questions?
Ms. Albers.
Just because it is the largest amount we've had on the base, like forever, Dr. Schroeder, can I put you on the spot, please? Would you go over how we came to that $1,500 and talk about the arrays and our friends in Kearney and our friends in the array and just how that amount came to be?
Sure. Well, every year we do a comparability study with the schools that are in our array. And so, like Brian said, we start out in October and we work with the school district's attorney to make that array calculation comparison. And by statute, we have to sit within 98 to 102% of the midpoint of that array calculation. And when we started out this year, we were at about 98.2% of that comparative array. So just inside the lower end of the legal limit. Well, as negotiations with the other schools in that comparability array progressed throughout the negotiation season, October, November, December, January, February, we found ourselves, as those other schools increased their total compensation, to be at about 95.2% of the comparison array. So that was a very direct indicator that we needed to make a significant increase in the base compensation or the base salary so that we could increase overall compensation and stay competitive in the array. That $1,500 increase on the base, we calculate that it'll put us at approximately 99% of that 98 to 102% array comparison. And part of the reason that we got behind was that last year negotiations were ended a little bit prematurely in our opinion. And so, we made a very small increase in the base where we were in a position to give more. So it's that compounding effect of what we didn't give last year in combination with the other schools within the comparative array giving generous increases on the base, and they're doing so because of the condition of the labor market.
Thank you for that. That was going forward, don't you leave yet. And going forward, this is really the state of the market right now. I mean, this is probably going to be kind of a competition with the array because we're trying so hard to keep our staff, and that fewer number of college students are going into education. So this is going to be kind of the trend for the future, don't you anticipate?
It is.
Yeah.
Those schools that are in our comparison array include Kearney and Hastings. Those are teachers that geographically we compete for. And so, it is the nature of the beast, and it is a game of chase the rabbit. You chase the mark. So as the total compensation increases in those other schools within our array, we have to follow suit in order to stay within that comparability range of 98 to 102%.
What happens if we fall below 98%?
We can be taken to the CIR, and what will happen is the CIR will order us to pay, and the CIR does not care whether or not, whether or not you have the ability to pay. So it's to the school district's advantage to always maintain that position. We like to sit at least in the middle at 100%, but due to the conditions that I described, we just weren't able to do that.
And CIR stands for?
The Court of Industrial Relations.
Very good. Thank you for that. I appreciate it.
Okay. Anything else?
No.
Okay.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Court. 8.6 Panorama Survey. The Panorama Survey surveys students, staff, and parents to gather input on how they and their students are supported in school. This tool is used to monitor school climate and culture in GIPS schools. The NDE school improvement process requires a survey to gather student, staff, and parent input. Panorama Education partners with schools and districts to collect and analyze data about social emotional learning, school climate, family engagement, and more. With research-backed surveys and a leading technology platform, Panorama helps educators act on data to improve student outcomes. Panorama has supported more than 5 million students in 6,500 schools across 45 states, which allows for the development of valid and reliable questions to collect, disaggregate, and compare data to inform school improvement. We have Dr. Dexter.
Yes, and Mr. Gerhardt's with me as well to give some technical information. But we do have a quote, and this is a renewal quote. Typically, we take anything that's renewal to the consent agenda, and it goes through and is approved that way. But we felt like, with some of the questions and concerns about Panorama, that we wanted to bring it for information tonight, get questions answered, and then hopefully bring it back for action in April. So the quote is for $54,000. That is $2,000 more than last year. Again, the Rule 10 in school improvement is required to have for us to collect parent, student, and staff feedback on climate, culture, safety, how we're doing as a school district is all required. The one thing about Panorama, we've had it since 2018, and it has been our most consistent data collection of any, because the state assessments have changed, map has changed, we've introduced dibbles, and so again, it's been our most consistent assessment. And when I was thinking about, okay, where did all this start? I went back through notes and was able to come up with a timeline, and we started meeting in 2015 to start talking about how do we collect data that can help us inform us of our culture and climate in each of our buildings in the district. So part of that study was to it's not coming. My links are not working. So we had at least up to 7 surveys, and so we narrowed it down to 3. And so we had Transform Ed, the BMS, and Panorama. And so we went through and made connections to the strategic plan. We also looked at the alignment to the social emotional learning competencies of self-awareness, self-management, social awareness, relationship skills, responsible decision-making, and the cost versus the benefit. And so when we really looked at the cost, the Transform would be $36,000 for the first year and $24,000 for years 2 and 3. And they would come to the district, set up the SEL assessment, and included optional culture and climate items for the SEL scale. So the culture and climate would have been extra. They also did not have a data dashboard, a way to disaggregate the data and share it back out in an easy way. And then the BMS is it's more like a pre-psychological screening assessment, but it was $30,000 per year and plus $350 per student. And it included access to the data on a cloud. Panorama was $41,280 each year for 3 years to include the option of climate surveys. Also, Panorama was the only one that did student, staff, and parent surveys. The BMS would have given us a Spanish version for an extra cost. And Panorama is available in multiple languages. So the decision was to go with Panorama. And I just highlighted intervention resources are built into the reports, and there's just a huge database of strategies. So if a teacher looks at her class and there's a high number of kids that don't feel engaged or supported, then we can go and click on several different strategies, teaching, professional development to help inform that teacher on how to improve that score. Workshops, virtual or in person, and the SEL survey is customizable and allows for longitudinal data collection. Panorama is the SEL measure recommended for this use. And again, this was a team of about 15 people that started meeting in 2015. And then in 2018, we presented a needs analysis. Is it going to work? It just goes blank. We'll go back here. There it is. So in 2018, we decided to implement just as a pilot, and so we started with Star Stolly when it was combined, Walnut and freshman students at senior high. And so we did that for a year and a half. The plan was for 2 years, but then COVID came along. And so in the spring, when we had to go into shutdown, Panorama helped us develop a survey that we could survey our students and parents for, how are you doing? We don't see your faces except on Zoom. How can we help? And so they really tailored it to what we were wanting to get from our students and families. When we came back, we started back with Panorama. It is administered in the fall and the spring to staff and students. We only administer one time for parents in the fall. We also have the positive supports framework, which this team also worked on. And one of the components of that is that we have a universal screener and a way to monitor culture and climate. And so Panorama met that part of the framework. Again, I talked about the Panorama playbook, having all kinds of strategies that teachers can access. One short story, when we first implemented it at the high school, freshman teachers found that there were a high number of kids that said, I just don't feel like my teacher really cares about how well I do in school. Teachers took it really personally. They went to that playbook, they found ways, and as simple as engage the students when they walk in the classroom, say hi, smile on your face, the check-in during the day and the check-out at the end of the class period. And they saw those scores increase. So that was teacher efficacy. What I did made a difference in that classroom. We also have on our webpage, we have the survey questions, we have the opt-out information. So right now we have a total of 17 students who have opted out of the Panorama survey. And so I can go in, when a parent requests, I can go into Panorama, click it, make sure that student, and then that student can't access the Panorama survey. And then we also have an example of a student report form. Questions?
I have one, Dr. Dexter. Could you, for everybody here, please explain the state statutes as they apply to needing surveys, please?
It's in Rule 10. It's an accreditation document, and so they require that you have a way to collect information from your students, parents, and staff for feedback on how you're doing. So that's in Rule 10. We also have a school improvement process. Next January will be our every 5 years. We have a team. There'll be about 23 people come into Grand Island from all around Nebraska to dig into our data to see what we're doing. Are we following Rule 10? And part of that is that we need to have staff, parent, and student data. And Panorama meets that.
Mr. Linsky?
Just out of curiosity, Dr. Dexter, why are the parents only given it once in the fall? Why are they not followed up with in the spring like the students?
It's just hard to get parents to respond to a survey, and it's very time intensive. And so we've just done it in the fall, and we can compare from fall to fall over the last 5 years.
Mr. Hawley?
I have a follow-up question to that. How many parent responses do you receive on average annually?
Oh, yeah.
I'd have to look it up.
Yeah, it's not what we want. Dr. Dahl has really been working on, how to get more.
I mean, would you say it's significantly low compared to what we were anticipating?
Feedback out of the corner here.
That,
might be about 600 respondents.
And Panorama seems to think that's good, that across the United States on how many parents complete.
Ms. Albers?
So 14 students overall, that's K through high school, or
Third
it's
through
third
12.
grade,
Yep.
third through, so maybe 6 families total. Seven families total that have opted out of it. And I know that you have some information about kids that have been suicidal that filled this out, and you've been able to kind of dig into the data. Can you explain that a little bit?
You want to take that?
Sure. So one of the things, I guess I don't want there to be any misunderstanding, it's not a mental health survey. That's not the point of it. It's about school climate, but there is open-ended questions available at the end. So as with any open-ended question, students, staff, parents are free to put whatever they'd like on there. In some cases, students have expressed some things that were very concerning, and so we have a protocol in place as we process the data as it comes back to make sure that we follow up with students who are exhibiting multiple indicators of distress, and our counselors and social workers follow up with those kids.
Ms. Wilson.
Is there a way to look at like the specific requirements out of Rule 10 for surveys?
Yes, you can go online and just Google Rule 10 Nebraska, and then it's a pretty thick document. Then you can look through that.
I know Rule 10 is, but I'm just saying as far as the surveys go, are there specific things that you have to ask about in? No.
It's just that you have a method to collect feedback from students, parents, and staff. And we chose to use climate and culture, and then just students, how they like school. And you can see those questions on the website.
Yeah. Well, I actually have looked at the questions, and I have kids starting in first grade, so four kids then that would take these surveys, and I look at the third grade questions, and there's, I don't know, over 20, and on a scale, and I don't, my third grader's brilliant, but those questions I think would be very difficult to answer for a third grader. So I guess the length and several of the questions are concerning. I wonder how accurate you are going to get a third grader to answer a lot of those questions. And it's not like the teacher can help the kid answer the questions, right?
They can go through it question by question. Our counselors at the elementary lead the assessment or the survey. And so our SECA teachers, social, emotionally creative arts teachers, they've been using the same vocabulary that's in the questions all year through second step, because Panorama aligns with second step. And so, and it's, maybe you need to have them come and talk about how they present this to students and work with them, and it goes fast. And they work through it together.
Mr. Hawley? Oh, you're done. Lisa?
GIPS doesn't create the questions. I mean, everything is done through research by Panorama. It's not like there's 5 people sitting in a classroom trying to create these questions. Could you go into then also the data that we get from this, what you use the data for, and then how we can compare our data to the other schools that are using the same instrument?
So the original concept for the survey was created with assistance from Johns Hopkins, and they really concentrated on focusing on developing questions that were valid and reliable. So if you go out to do a survey, you have to make sure that those questions elicit the response from the respondents that you're expecting, right, in the way you're expecting it. So like you said, the development of the questions are very important. Panorama is used by 21,000 school districts around the country in all 50 states. So they have a really robust quality control process that helps make sure that these questions that they provided are valid. Then we're given a menu of choices for questions, and a team actually selected the smaller amount of questions that were going to be surveyed based on the alignment with the strategic plan. The data that we get back from Panorama is in a digital platform. So other survey tools Number one, if you have valid and reliable questions, you ask them with a tool. Number two, how do you get the data back? A lot of time it's simply tabular data. At one point in time, we had 3 different surveys going on in the district, and 2 of them were given back tabular data, and the third one was Panorama. And the utilization and the action that comes out of that, having the data in a digestible format, was substantially better with that tool. The platform allows us to make sure that the information that we get back and the data that we get in the survey, while it's disaggregated appropriately, also has the appropriate security in it so that staff are seeing their own students, principals get to see their school as a whole, counselors and social workers have the appropriate access they need, and so on. And then the value that comes with having a number of school districts throughout the country that are also sharing de-identified and anonymous data crossed for benchmarking allows us to see how are we performing based on these categories that Dr. Dexter described in our schools compared to other schools that look similar to us. So it really gives us a platform, because having a number to know where we fall is one thing, but knowing how we compare to other districts that are similar is very helpful as well. Another component that she mentioned in Rule 10 and the requirement was our Title I schools also have a requirement that a survey like this is used in their school improvement plan. So as part of that process, that gets tied in as well.
And how many Title I schools do we have? A lot. And then, so if Dr. Dahl was to create this survey himself, first of all, he'd quit, but it would take hours upon hours. It would take a staff.
To get it to a point where it's digestible like that, and you have it appropriately disaggregated and secured so that people can only see what they need to see that's relevant to them and they have an educational need to know. All of that is what you're paying for. It's not just the survey question. It's not just the tool to collect it. It's the tool that disaggregates it, puts it in an easily digestible format, secures it in the appropriate way, and then can display it longitudinally over multiple years. So there's an investment in it of that you would have to pay a person a fraction and up to a substantial fraction of an FTE and a highly competent technical person to do that analysis and break that down. So, yeah.
And you ask about what we measure. The strategy that Shoemaker shared is based on Panorama data, because we know that we have circles, we have restorative circles, what they call it, the section they go to anyway. That's based on, we needed to get better relationships with our kids. We needed to help kids build relationships with each other, be kind, and be respectful, safe, responsible. That's where we use Panorama data to say, are we making a difference with the strategies we implement?
Thank you very much. Oh, I'm sorry. Katie, did you have one? Let's do one last question.
Sorry. Okay, how many schools did you say use Panorama survey?
Like in the nation?
Yeah.
26?
21,000 was the last I saw.
Okay, so there's over 100,000 schools in the U.S. So do you know what the top survey is that more schools do other than Panorama? Is it one of those?
I don't know that. I can do some research, but I don't know that that's readily available.
Okay, sorry, I was just kind of curious, just divvying up numbers in my head. And I have a secondary question. With the survey, with the answers that you get back for feedback, I know some people are concerned if they can see like the results of the survey. Are parents, public able to see the answers?
Okay. Yeah, go ahead. Need some clarification. For your own students?
Yeah, for their students.
Yes, they can request a copy of their student responses.
Okay, and it provides the exact question and answer to that for each student?
It's aggregated by the social emotional learning competency. So we talk about self-awareness, self-help, social skills. So you get a score, and then you also get the trend data, so that, this year they were at this level, this year but you can see the graph. And it's just a one-pager, just real quick.
Okay, thank you.
Eric, did you want to go ahead and ask? Okay, he's the last one.
Thank you. 2 questions. The first one is like, what was used before Panorama? You could speak to that.
Corey kind of alluded to it. We've tried the NDE survey, and we've tried K-12 Insight, and at one point we were doing all 3, just to, to see what we could get. And, the NDE survey is just, it's extremely hard to get any data out of it, to compare, to do trend data. They're revising it again this year. And so with Panorama, we've been able to keep, like I said earlier, that consistency to do longitudinal data collection. So that's, what was your other question?
Oh, that was the first one.
Okay.
Yeah,
Did I
yeah.
answer it?
Yeah,
Okay.
you did. Thank you. The last one is like, what would be some setbacks if we were not to kind of like renew this contract?
The biggest one is our accreditation visit in January 2024. And we get that every 5 years. And so that's, the team comes in and recommends you for accreditation to the state board. And so if we don't have data or consistent data, or if we've been changing it every year, they're going to question that and point it out as, you need to find something and stick with it.
All right. Well, Dr. Dexter, Mr. Gerhardt, thank you very much. We appreciate your time. Okay. Item 8.7, staffing request for 2023-2024 school year. Mr. Court.
Okay, thank you. This is the last time I'm up here, by the way. Well, until later. So one of the things we do every year is we ask our administrators from building level, district level, to provide staffing requests for the upcoming, the 23-24 school year. And we asked them for this back in January. I received them January 20th, and then through the central office admin team, we started kind of breaking those down, and we ended up with about $4 million in requests, give or take a few bucks one way or the other. And that's from certified as well as classified positions. So part of it is to work with, obviously, Dr. Schroeder with finances of what we can afford and what we can't afford. That's a huge piece of this, because there's a lot of things that are listed that are needed. I want to get that list and compile it and break that down, and they have to give their rationale for everything of why, what they need, why they need it, and then where's the funding come from. And so obviously funding's a huge piece of it. And if it's all coming out of the general fund, obviously we know probably not gonna be able to afford everything. So then it's what's of the greatest need. And we spent probably, I'm gonna guess, 10 to 12 hours going through this, and that might be light if you talk to the group that we work with on this, the central office team. But we felt like we came through with some things that are, I'd say, needed and are things to definitely for us to consider moving forward. And we obviously are not near that $4 million range. So again, we're trying to be fiscally responsible and yet meet the needs of our district, and especially our students, because that's really what this is about. So I'm going to start with the first one, the Early Learning Center. And this is called the Hello Hero Case Manager. And again, I'm showing the impact, the general fund. That's salary, benefits, all that. Dr. Schroeder gives me that number. So that's kind of a, does everybody cost that? No. Some cost more, some cost less. That's kind of the average number there. So this past year, we utilized this service of Hello Hero for a fully certified case manager to support all early childhood special ed students. This certified position is necessary for us to meet our legal responsibilities to students who receive special ed services. For the 22-23 school year, we have enrolled 76 students who receive special ed services across all of our sites. In addition, we're in the process of evaluating and likely qualifying an additional 20 to 25 students. So this is one of those that we utilized it this year. It's a need to continue it moving forward.
Just to interject here, just for board members that are new, we are required to provide special ed services to any student that has needs from 0 to 5. And that's really what this case manager is serving, is all those. Whether they're in one of our preschools or not in a preschool, we're required to provide those services. So that's one of those things that if you haven't been around the education game for a while, you may not realize that we have that obligation to provide those services.
Thank you. Elementary, we had student needs due to class sizes at Dodge, Jefferson, Kinnickrem, and Newell, so that's 4 FTEs. But with a reduction due to enrollment needs and changes in other buildings, it becomes a wash. It becomes, yeah, we need 4 here, but in the other buildings, with class sizes, we're able to save 4 FTEs. So there's no additional cost there of the budget, but I did want to point that out when you say, well, you're adding teachers at this building. Yes, but in another building, they might be losing an FTE due to that. Middle school, we have, again, we talked certified and classified. Certified, Westridge social worker. Currently, Westridge has a half-time FTE social worker, and you've heard about the numbers tonight, so I don't really need to go over those. Westridge's numbers are in line with what Barr and Walnut are at. So to be able to provide support for the Westridge students, we've asked that this be moved up from a 0.5 to a full-time 1.0 FTE as a Westridge school social worker. Currently, their person is shared between Westridge and Grand Island Senior High. We've talked about the band and orchestra. These are the 2 positions you've heard about today, the middle school orchestra and band. Those 1.0 FTEs for each of those. To get us to that number to make that work on the new middle school schedule. And then classified the FTE for Westridge custodian position, and a little bit more on that with their student enrollment increasing next year. You heard they increased by about 45 kids this year. It'll be another 45. You're talking 90-ish kids in the last 2 years. And the more classrooms need to be cleaned, the more areas need to be cleaned. And with the square footage determining the number of custodians needed to clean the building on a regular basis, they're in need of an additional half-time custodian at there. Mr. Petch from Building and Grounds supports this as it meets those numbers with the square footage as well as with the number of students. So just due to the amount of area they have to clean to get that up to an additional 0.5 FTE for Westridge custodian. The total general fund hit to that's $222,475. Through central office, the first one is the nurse supervisor. We currently have one nurse that serves as our nurse supervisor. She's on a 187-day teacher contract. She is paid along on the salary schedule that way. We're asking, due to all the work, and if you know anything about the nursing field right now, and the challenges we face there with our RNs and our LPNs. She is running everywhere. I think this year we've hired 3 or 4 either nurses this year that she does all the training for. So she not only is working at one of our buildings, but also supervises and does a lot of the training. And so we've asked that we move her from a 187-day contract to a 230-day, so adding 43 days on that for her contract time. Approximate cost of $25,000. And the second one is the community liaison position. And in this position, just an increase in salary. This person has a life coaching certificate. They work closely with Lincoln School as a community school. They do a lot of work with the parent group in that building, has also worked with our preschool as well. The community liaison provides programming, interpretation, collaboration with parents, businesses, organizations, and other community agencies in a way that positively engages families, builds relationships, and fosters school community partnerships with an emphasis in our Title I buildings. The 2 of these would add an additional $30,000 to the general fund. Special education, and this is one where we are looking at a 1.0 FTE speech language pathologist. An additional speech language pathologist to help us with the, as we talked earlier, serving the birth to 5 students, families on our home-based, community-based teams are needed for the 23-24 school year. Currently, our home-based, community-based caseloads are extremely high, the highest point in the last 10 years for GIPS, which is consistent with everybody across the state of Nebraska. Referrals are up 15 to 18 per week. They average 10 referrals per week. So this caseload increase will continue to rise the rest of this year and into next year. So this has just become a need due to just the sheer amounts and the numbers and with the lack of people. So we need this 1.0 FTE to meet the needs of what is needed for this position. Again, 81,500, since it's through special ed, 40% comes back to us, so we get a savings of 32,600 on the back side. So we don't get that on the front end.
Which would also be the case on that first one.
Yes, sorry about that, correct. The Hello Heroes would be the same. Building and grounds, 1.0 FTE low voltage technician. And so in this position, we currently have one person that is responsible for maintaining and servicing security camera systems, phone systems, sound systems, audiovisual systems, and data wiring. And probably with as many buildings as we have, is it 20, how many, Mr. Page? 23 campuses. That is a lot for one person to do. So with that, we end up doing a lot of either overtime or outsourcing this to get things completed in a timely manner because one person can't stay up. This technology has been expanding rapidly over the years, and our one person cannot keep up with the workload. The added position would decrease overtime and reduce outsourcing, thus saving the district money. The building and grounds budget would pay for this. Again, it'd be a cost of approximately $65,000 out of their budget there. So total impact with all these positions, the general fund is $408,477 minus the $32,600 minus another $32,600 was going to give us approximately, let's see if my math is good, $415,000, around $415,000. That sound right? A little above. Again, remember where we started? I told you about $4 million. So I guess questions on any of those? I know I went through them semi-fast, and you've seen some of this information, Personnel Committee as well.
Mr. Court, would you go back to the middle school screen, please?
Yes, sir.
I know we talked earlier during the middle school visioning program, and by adding the FTEs and orchestra and band and converting to 60-minute periods, we might put some extra pressure on classroom sizes. So I don't see anything in there about adding FTEs for if we get class sizes over 30, and I would sure love to see that in there.
And usually we have a built-in bank, a little bit extra cash, I believe, that Dr. Schroeder sits in his desk drawer to cover a little bit of that. And that's not just for middle school. I would say that's just for some extra FTEs because we could have a huge kindergarten class at Engelman Elementary this year, and we have to add a section. And that seems to really happens at the elementary, especially at kindergarten. It seems like every year we add 1 or 2 sections across. So that's not really part of this, but it's semi-guess built in. I'll turn it over to the money guy.
No, number one, don't tell anybody about the sock drawer. That's supposed to be our little secret. The other thing is we were talking about that actually this morning in cabinet. With some of those middle school class size ratios, what we currently have is we don't have all of the FTEs filled. So like we were looking at Walnut, and we have 3 ELA teachers that we could not hire. And so that drives that student-to-teacher ratio up there. So that's part of the puzzle I didn't want to forget about.
Oh, don't leave yet. This is coming from cash, right? I'm assuming.
Yes, it will. What Mr. McFarland is alluding to is by the time we account for the settlement that we have with the GIEA, when we make the adjustment for GICSA, our administrators, central office staff, classified, the total cost of that increase, because the settlement just with the teachers is just south of about $4 million, and based on the projections that I've shared with facilities and finance, of what additional revenue will come in between increased property valuation, taxable valuation, the yield from that, and then we now have our estimate for state aid for the upcoming year, which is only an estimate until the legislature convenes. That's a little over $4 million. So, it's real simple, revenues and expenditures. So our anticipated revenue is not going to keep pace with our anticipated increased cost of expenditures, including that request that you see up on the screen. And so we will be into cash. And so the superintendent's aware of that, cabinet's aware of that, facilities and finance is aware of that. I appreciate you calling it out. And so that's part of budgeting fun, right? Figuring all of that out. How do we avoid or how do we make the least impact on the cash balance as we move forward? And then how do we work harder to go forward to make sure we're maximizing FTEs and not overspending on staff?
Sorry, I'm a banker.
Yeah, no, I appreciate the question and the clarification. It's good for everybody to know that in our position.
Thank you, Dr. Schroeder. Any other questions for Mr. Court? All right, thank you, Mr. Court. Item 8.8, Hope Squad Program, Dr. Dexter.
So attached to the agenda is the needs analysis for the Hope Squad at Grand Island Senior High. I'm trying to get this to go bigger. It's hard to see. Sorry. All right. I'll just summarize. If you need me to stop, just say so. So what is the identified need? We have an increase in suicide ideation, increased attendance issues, increase in behavioral health needs, and the stigma attached, and an increase in substance abuse, specifically vaping. The Hope Squad would support GIPS success area, thrive in school and life. The proposed action, Hope Squad is a school-based peer-to-peer behavioral health support program. 15 educators will be trained by Hope Squad trainers as Hope Squad advisors in June of 2023. Hope Squad student members will be chosen by their peers through a school-wide nomination process. We anticipate 8 to 10 students for each grade level at senior high. Orientation will be provided to students and parents with a required signed parent permission form. The Hope Squad will use the Hope Squad national curriculum. And I think most of you were in attendance at the December meeting when Dr. Hudnall presented on this research-based approach. And all that research is listed here. If you click on that document, it'll take you there. All students will be considered for Hope Squad members and for support. They really stress that this is a peer-to-peer nomination process, and so they have a pretty unique way of being able to collect that information and identify the kids that kids will go to. The fiscal impact is $44,600, and this would come out of, part of it would come out of Title IV, and then part of it would come out of the ESSER collaborative grant that we have through NDE that operates at senior high and West Lawn. And we would have a coordinator and we would have advisors that would work with students during the year, and then students actually are the kind of the go-to people and kind of the ears of what's going on and what do kids need help with. Persons responsible, myself, Mr. Hubbard, and Matthew Schultz is our ESSER collaborative grant coordinator at the high school. And then Hope Squad requires completion of surveys just on how well the program's going, what are our needs, what are our successes. And then we would plan to follow up with L4L committee in January 2024 and June of 2024. Questions?
Mr. Hawley?
Dr. Dexter, can you explain Title IV funding?
Title IV, and I just looked it up today and forgot what it is. it used to be Safe Schools, but it's federal funds. And it's in our, the consolidated funding formula, which is Title I, Title II, Title III Immigrant, Title III EL, and Title IV Safe Schools. And we get about, I believe I saw $300,000 a year. I'm not sure on Title IV.
Anyone else? Thank you, Dr. Dexter. Appreciate it.
And this will be action as well.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, items 8.9, Walnut Middle School and Elementary Security Vestibules, followed by 8.10, Construction Update.
Thanks, President McFarland. This is the last for ESSER 3 funded projects. What we have is Walnut's kind of the leading project. I think we've talked about that a little bit, or I have to you, but we also, to address other security vestibules, we used a tactic a little different. We had alternates, and so we ended up having an additional 6 alternates, which were 6 different elementaries that were on our list that we had submitted for that. So we did get more than one bidder. We ended up with 2 general contractors submitting bids to us, with Duncan Thies being the low bid for that base. And if you open up that attachment, it'll have our recommendation that we talked with Facility Finance about earlier. But what I did see with the base bid was, Duncan Thies was in at 1.449. Mid-Plains came in second at 1.490, so pretty close. But one of the alternates, which was Gates Elementary, came in at least double high of what we had anticipated at almost $500,000. So if you look at that recommendation, we're going to recommend to use Duncan Thies, and then added with alternates 2 through 6 gives us, a total of $2,108,900 for a total spend on that, and that gets us kind of right where we need to be. So yes, we are going to recommend to not have Gates as part of this project, but as I'd mentioned before, Gates is also going to get done, and I'll pay for that out of my general fund dollars. So Gates is not going to get left behind this time, just 100%. Don't worry. We're going to do the same thing that was on the contract documents, but we're just going to do it and self-perform it, and I'm pretty sure I can get in half of what that cost is. In fact, I bet I can do it for 30% of what that bid was. So recommend Duncan Thies. This is information right now, and then we'll come back with action later on tonight. Any questions that I can answer for you?
Mr. Hawley.
The rest of the alternates that you have on here, how did that pricing come in compared to what you thought it was going to be? You said Gates was about double what you thought it was going to be. And
Gates is way double.
Do you know why it's double? Is it just is it the difficulty of the project, the old building?
So what I'm seeing is if you've got HVAC or electrical involved in these prices, with Davis-Bacon, that runs those prices up. And we've seen that since we've started ESSER 3. I've talked with the GCs a little bit about, for Mid-Plains, dude, why are you so high? And he said, well, the electricians or HVAC guys, what they're paying their people is almost double what they normally would, so it really cranks those prices up. As far as, do I think that the other alternates are satisfactory? I would say yes. It does have a lot of electrical involved in all those, so they are a little higher. If we can operate and do those, like for Gates, we can self-perform that with some of our own folks, and not have to, follow the Davis-Bacon requirements. The other one that was a larger one was Howard, but I did expect Howard to be right about where it was at the over $200,000, because we were actually adding out into their canopy area there with storefront. So That one didn't raise my eyebrow. It was Gates. I'm like, wow, it must be snake bit or something, because it just, I've never seen that before, these prices just being so crazy high. Good thing is, though, is from what our total spend is, it's all fitting in line with what we have recommended and approved from NDE for our ESSA3 stuff. So we'll be able to get these projects done, these plus our other couple, and end up without going over, or at least not over by too much.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Petch.
I'll just stay up here for my next.
We're going to do 8.10, construction update.
Right. So at the high school, making decent progress. Weather did kick us a little bit in the rear, but they got the kitchen or cafeteria addition, got that floor poured last week, so that's good. Everything's moving forward. I think I mentioned last week we've had some latent conditions with structural stuff, getting those things taken care of, and get the engineers involved so that we can direct our GC to what they need to do to fix it. So that's been going well. And so with that floor poured, that'll allow them to go ahead and pop the windows in here within the next month or so, get the roof on, so we'll have it enclosed and we can start with finishes. This summer's going to be quite hectic because of trying to get that done. They can't get into that cafeteria until school's out, and there's a lot of work in there. So it'll be fun, along with the vestibules at the east and west entrances as well. So we're making plans with the high school, as we get closer to when school's out, to how we're going to phase that work and get it accomplished by when school starts again next year. Kinnickrum, we're meeting later on this week for our pre-construction meeting to get that project kicked off as well. So good so far. Any questions on construction?
Don't believe so. Thank you
Thanks.
very much. Appreciate it. Item 8.11, Student Representative Report. Mr. Cloutier.
So to start off, hope everybody had a good spring break. Good to see you guys again. I know it's been a while since the last meeting, but I want to start off by discussing something I'm personally involved in and very excited about getting more into, the SSAC, the Student Superintendent Advisory Council. Recently here we had our first meeting with the new superintendent, Mr. Matt Fisher, as I'm sure he remembers, which was just, from my perspective, it went fantastic. I and several other students there that I talked to really got sort of the vibe that he was somebody who not only was there to sort of listen to everyone and give sort of lip service at that, but that he was really trying to comprehend everything, everyone's viewpoint, where they came from. It was awesome. I know everybody was pretty much just exchanging various, ideas, personal beliefs, questions, concerns, and that's a really diverse group of students. There is no way to truly define all of them in one word, or, we have people from almost every single activity, all sorts of different backgrounds, different parts of the country and stuff. So it was really great, our first meeting with Matt Fisher, just sort of getting to know him and also discussing, what everyone thought the future of GISH should look like with this sort of new administration going on. Then for National Honor Society, recently, on February 20th, we had the new chapter, I think I mentioned this in the last meeting, get inducted for the current junior class. Not only that, but we also are going to have a unique opportunity since there isn't a lot of overlap with the two NHS chapters where we will get to work together, the current chapter and the new chapter, on the Easter Basket Extravaganza, which is for Project Hunger. That'll be coming up on March 25th. So that's super cool that we sort of get to do that, sort of a, passing the torch deal. Then for activities, obviously we, not to downplay it, but obviously we just witnessed the bowling team, both bowling teams be presented with their respective trophies, but also for some other winter sports, we had the swimming team, which for some individual swimmers, Luke Dankert had a second place finish in the 200-meter medley. Catherine Novinsky had a fourth place finish for the 100-yard backstroke. And then for both the girls and boys team, we at least had a top 6 finish in a team event, which was really impressive. For basketball, we won a district game and put up a really impressive fight against Bell West, who was obviously pretty good, but very, very good season from the boys basketball team. Then for the cheerleading team, we managed to finish 3rd in a single event in the state, which is also very impressive. For some upcoming stuff, upcoming activities, this Wednesday, the speech team will get to compete at state. 3 Islander students involved in speech will be competing at state this Wednesday. The Big Fish musical, which I've been talking about for literally 4 months, just sort of mentioning it, they're practicing. I think I brought up that, with these fine arts, it's one of those things where they don't really get to show off all the work they put in every single week, like some activities. But yeah, it's here. So March 31st through April 2nd, they will be performing the musical each night. So we'll finally get to witness all of that pay off. I'm super excited. I'm sure many of you will be in attendance at least one of those shows. So yeah. Then for spring sports, the track and field will be starting, and then also boys golf season is going to be underway this spring. Not much to report there. We haven't had any meets yet or anything like that, but very excited for the direction that's heading. I'll have more to report next time as far as spring sports go, as the season just started after spring break. So that's about it. Thank you, guys.
Thank you very much. Items 8.12, Superintendent Report. Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh, that's all right.
I'm sorry, Lisa. Ms. Albers.
So I saw Zach earlier this month, I think it was this month, at the Poetry Slam. So Zach is a very well-rounded student. He's athletic and he's intellectual and he writes poetry. And so I was quite impressed with that. He and I and a couple other people, Lindsay Juergens, and were judges at the Poetry Slam. And we didn't get a lot of advertising about it this year. It just kind of fell into my lap that particular day. But we really need to get more people there. Mr. Fisher did an excellent job with his cowboy poetry. Very impressive, hat and all. But these kids get up on the stage and absolutely bare their soul and pour their heart out, and you can't believe some of the things that they say, and really show their true feelings and some of their trauma. And but I would just encourage everybody to try to go next year, so maybe we can get that on the calendar, Angela. So anyway, well done, Zach.
Yeah, thank you. I will say, from someone who did do obviously the athletics and stuff, watching those kids, that is possibly one of the bravest, most just vulnerable experiences that you can partake in. So, just massive respect to all those kids. That was a really great experience for me. But yeah, so a lot of respect for the Islanders who participated in that.
Mr. Holly.
Just a quick comment since we're talking about activities. We held our show choir annual event here a week or two ago, and it was fabulous. But I wanted to take a minute to point out our custodial staff. So I had the privilege of working that event from 6 a.m. until 1 a.m., I think. And throughout the day, we called on them for everything, you know, backed up toilets, this trash, we had an incident in the kitchen, and every time we called, they came. We're locked out of this room, we need to move this from here to there. So I just wanted to give a shout out to our custodial staff, not only at senior high, but across the district for what you do. You truly keep this district running. Even on your days off, on the weekends, when we have things to do, you're there. And so we really, really appreciate that. Just want to take a minute to shout out to them.
Thank you. All right, number 8.12, Superintendent Report. Mr. Fisher.
Lots of great comments there about some of the things that Zach did share, and certainly appreciate Mr. Hawley's comments about our custodial staff, because they are one of those crews that are out there on the front line all the time that we too often forget to thank. And they do just vital work, because if you don't have one around and you run into one of those situations, you know how vital the job they do is. So certainly add my thank you to them for that. And just to build on what Zach said a little bit about the student advisory group, Mr. Gilbertson had told me it was really an impressive group, but he undersold them, because they really were just the diversity and the way that they engaged. You know, that's sometimes for even high school students engaging with adults that they don't know at all is a hard thing to do. And they were very engaged. They listened to what I had to say, and then they had great questions. And I like Zach walked away from that really feeling like, you know, this is a group that we could really get some things going that could really be great, you know, for the high school. You know, there's probably, you know, as you think about the future, obviously the sad thing about this group is we don't have a whole lot of school year left. And we talked a little bit about that at that meeting. You know, what can we accomplish still this year? And, you know, they had some great ideas. And so I think, you know, we're going to try and work on some things there. But just, again, thinking about how that group can impact things all across the district and in a number of different school settings, as well as just in the community. So I think that is exciting to think about that, you know, that relationship and really building a relationship with that group. So I think that was great. You know, some of the other things that got mentioned, you know, as far as National Honor Society, I think Mr. Gilbertson said that night that this was the largest inductee class that maybe we've ever had in National Honor Society. So, you know, great job on the part of those juniors that have been working hard academically and really, you know, supporting those 4 pillars of the National Honor Society. You guys did a great job of talking about Poetry Slam. Man, it was, you know, you go into those things, you don't know what you're getting into, and you know, then just hearing the bared souls that you know, took place there, it was very, you know, it was sobering yet exciting to see what kids can do. So I think that was a great experience for me. And then, you know, I got to wander through the show choir and catch a couple of our groups perform. And again, that's just always exciting to see kids and the excitement that they have for doing things that, you know, aren't easy things to do. You know, I guarantee you won't get me singing, maybe poetry, not singing. But anyhow, great job from a number of different things that we had going on in the district in the last month. Just a couple of things I wanted to mention. You know, we talked a little bit about staffing. One of the other staffing pieces that we're working our way through is HR director is something that we've been, you know, in limbo with for since this fall. and we're going to be doing some interviews for that position tomorrow. And so hoping to get something in place on a permanent basis there. The CFO position, we're kind of zeroing in on some candidates there that we're hoping to interview maybe next week. The Director of College and Career Readiness, the position that Dan Phillips is currently in, we actually interviewed, was it last? No, it was a week before last. And at the end of the week, and then put an offer out there, and unfortunately, the individual that we were hoping to pull into that position turned us down. Decided that he was going to stay in the job that he was currently in, but we're looking at, adding a little bit of a supervisory piece that maybe Dan Phillips didn't have, and so we're kind of looking for an individual that we feel like can work closely with Mr. Gilbertson and really maybe grow that role a little bit in terms of working, with all the principals across the high school and also the middle school principals. So we're working on that one still. We've started to collect some ideas. We're also going to re-advertise that position. So just wanted to give you a little bit of an update on those things. Looking a little ways down the road, but again, Lisa had indicated getting snuck up on by the Poetry Slam a little bit. One of the things that the Public Relations Committee has been talking about is Staff Appreciation Week, the week of May 8th through the 12th, and probably trying to find some ways that some board members can be involved in that. So just kind of in your head, check mark that. Just quick legislative update. I had a whole bunch of bills here that, probably may go somewhere. These are bills that actually moved out of committee and at least are on general file. The one that I think we probably have seen the most attention around is probably the LB 757, which would be providing scholarships through a foundation for use for paying for private education. And that bill did narrowly pass a cloture motion by 33 votes, which is exactly what it takes to. So it moved on to select file. It'll have to go through another vote. They've amended it. Initially, there was going to be $25 million available the first year, and then that was going to grow with no necessary cap. It was amended to put a $100 million cap on that. So we'll see where that one goes. I know that's been one that, like I said, has drawn a lot of attention. Just some of the other things that are out there, I think one of the things, because we've been down this road, LB 299, that deals with joint public agencies, collaborative agreements between one or more public agencies. That legislation, I think, is probably going to pass. And what the legislation does is says that boards would no longer be able to use that tool without a vote of the people. The way it is right now, you can do projects like we did with the Learning Center, the Early Learning Center, and do that just through joint work between two public agencies and not have to go to a vote of the people. And I think the intent of that was to be able to do projects like that. Unfortunately, I think there were some people that maybe pushed the limit on that a little bit, and it certainly caught the legislator's eye, and I think that's probably a tool that we're no longer going to have available to us, because unless there's truly a joint public agency that's going in place, you would just go to a normal bond election, which is really what you're going to end up doing under this now. So again, I think that one's just one to be aware of. There's a couple other ones. There's a bill that probably has a fair chance of passing, LB 201, that will require us to work with students, all students, to make sure that they've completed a FAFSA, federal financial aid form, before they leave school. So again, that's an unfunded mandate that says we're going to provide that. Now, not that it's necessarily a bad thing, but you know, again, it is one more thing that the legislature is telling us that we have to do. Dyslexia, LB 298, we're now going to have to, I'm pretty sure it'll pass too. We're going to have to collect and report data on students with dyslexia. So again, just those are little things that the legislature throws our way every year, and that's why we get that update of policies that we have to put in place every year. So one other one, I think LB 414 deals with option, and again, although we're a negative option district, I think it's always an important piece for us to keep track of, because if they would ever change the option requirements to the point where people decided they were no longer going to accept options, that would certainly have an impact on us. So again, that's just kind of one to keep track of. The governor's bills, as far as his finance package for schools, are still sitting in committee. I think the idea is kind of that those bills need to move together, and so evidently the committees have not got to the point where they're ready to move them out of committee yet. So we'll see where those go. Other than that, just a couple of things from the School Boards Association, just in their quick links, and I think all of you should be getting those quick links. Just a couple of things to remind you about. This Friday is the deadline for proposals for presenting at the November conference. And I know that's something that the district has done fairly frequently in the past. With lots of new board members and all the new that we have going on, this is probably a year that we may not be going to do something, unless somebody has something that they've been dying to do that they want to get a proposal put together by Friday. My guess is we probably won't this year, but I think this is a good point or chance to mention that November conference and really have you start thinking about it. That is a really, really good conference. And I think it's one that, obviously, because it's in Omaha, if you want to go down for one day, you can go for a day. If it's, you want to go for a pre-conference and then go for a full day on Thursday and half a day on Friday, it's all good. So again, I just put a plug in for that as you start planning your calendar out for the rest of this year. Legislative Advocacy Day is going to be April 17th. So that would be a day when we can go down, hear the latest about where all of the bills are at and anything else the legislature is working on, and then would have a chance, I think, after lunch to actually go to the Capitol and I guess see the workings, maybe interact with some senator, if we get a chance to do that. And other than that, just again, thinking ahead a little bit, in June, the School Boards Association does have workshops on a couple different dates, and we'll share them when we get closer. But there's workshops on both leadership, law, and they're both good workshops. So again, looking ahead to June, just be keeping that in mind. So, Lisa, anything you got from school boards other than that?
I'll just add a couple things that you talked about. So Vargas's bill, LB 201, about the FAFSA, he's brought that a couple years, and I think this year he did put an opt-out provision in there. That's new this year. So, and Senator Linehan has brought the dyslexia bill, and she has dyslexia, so it's kind of near and dear to her heart, and that's one of the things she pushes. Senator Walls has a lot of bills about students at risk. There's several bills helping providing additional funds for students in poverty, feeding students. Honestly, I don't know if those are going to go anywhere. There's a lot of them. I don't think they're going to go anywhere. There's, it's going to be like walking through mud, I think, through the unicameral. I don't know how much they're going to get passed. The Scholarship bill is, she just barely has the votes, and she has some very strong people that are against it that want to filibuster it. So just turn your computer on, because it'll be really great entertainment whenever that does end up going to the floor.
And I think it sounds like it could be this week on that one.
Oh, okay.
That was the last I'd seen, that it could be as early as this week, that would go back for debate.
So they have one senator getting chemo, and they have one senator who's out sick. Both of them are proponents, but if you're not there to vote, it's like a no vote. And so, I mean, it's going to be very close.
So otherwise, I think that's about all I needed to talk through tonight. Any questions anyone would have? All right, that's
All
the
right.
good thing about it being late.
That's easy. All right. Action items. Oops, where'd she go? 9.1, 2022 K-8 Nebraska Mathematics Standards Revisions and Adoption. It's Dr. Berman, or will it be Dr. Dexter?
Right. And Dr. Berman presented on why we need your adoption of the curriculum standards. So if you have any questions, Tony and I will do our best to answer. We're not as entertaining as Dr. Berman.
Mr. Linsky.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the 2022 K-8 Nebraska Mathematics Standards Revisions and Adaptation.
Seconded by Mr. Garcia Mendez. Discussion. Seeing none, we will put the question to a vote. Once again, the motion is to approve the 2022 K-8 Nebraska Mathematics Standards Revisions and Adoptions. You may vote. Motion passes. Item 9.2, staffing request for 2023-24 school year. It's goofy.
Any questions from earlier on that, on our list?
No. I would entertain a motion to approve the negotiation, to approve the staffing request for the 2023 school year.
I make a motion to approve the staffing request for the 2023-2024 school year.
Seconded by Mr. Hawley. Discussion. Seeing none, we'll put the question to the vote. We are going to approve the staffing request for the 2023-24 school year as presented. You may vote.
Thank you.
Motion passes. 9.3, Hope Squad.
I did look up the official title of Title IV, Student Support and Academic Enrichment. And it does like our Power Camp, Extended Learning Opportunities, wellness curriculums. So that's where the funding's coming from for Hope Squad.
Thank you, Dr. Dexter. I would entertain a motion to approve the Hope Squad program.
That's a question.
Oh, you most certainly may.
Dr. Dexter, you said, again, that was partially funded through Title IV and
We have
ESSER's funds.
Yeah, and it's ARP, and it's a combination of Nebraska Children and Families Foundation and ESSER funds. And we applied for it, and it's about $650,000 for West Lawn and senior high after-school and summer programs.
Okay. Going forward, it looks like this is a 4-year program for that $44,000 roughly.
The $44,000 would pay for the curriculum and the training, and then the other grant would pay for staff.
Okay. So going forward, as we continue this program, would it all, the ESSER's piece is going to fall away? Would it all just go into Title IV funding then at that point?
It could. We've got approval to do that. They're very supportive of this program, NDE is.
Okay.
But it will come, just the curriculum and the training has to come out of Title IV this time. We can only pay for staff and student incentives out of the newest grant, which lasts for 2 years.
Okay.
So at the end of the 2 years, we can definitely use the Title IV money.
Perfect. Thank you.
All right, I will,
I'd like to make a motion to approve the Hope Squad program for Grand Island Senior High as presented.
seconded by Ms. Albers. Discussion? Seeing none, we will vote on the motion to approve the Hope Squad program as presented. You may vote. Thank you, Dr. Dexter. Okay, item 9.4, Walnut Middle School and Elementary Security Vestibules. Would entertain a motion to approve Duncan Tice Construction to work on the projects at Walnut and Elementary Security Vestibules. Any questions for Mr. Pesh? Okay, entertain a motion.
Recommend approval of Duncan Tice Construction to the work of the project at Walnut Middle School and Elementary School vestibules.
Second by Mr. Hawley. Discussion? Seeing none, we'll put the question to a vote to entertain a motion to approve Duncan Tice Construction. Motion passes. Thank you, Ms. Betch. Reports. We have no report from the Grand Island Public Schools Foundation. Number 11, notification of upcoming meetings. The next, where'd it go? I don't see it. What's that, 13th? Next one is on April 13th.